The latest tech,
I'm Alexa. I can answer your questions.
interviews,
And we are evolving, and we are seeing an amazing opportunity that is happening.
accessibility.
Accessibility is one of our core values. It's even a part of our mission statement.
This is Double Tap TV.
Welcome to another week and another edition of Double Tap TV. This week we're talking all about an app that's taken the world by storm, and it's particularly popular in the blind community. If you guys want to get involved, email us. It's feedback@ami.ca. On Twitter, follow us, and you can reach out by going to Double Tap Canada. And of course on Instagram, we are now at doubletap.online. Mark Aflalo and Stephen Scott with you each and every single week. He is by my side again. And this week, Stephen, we're talking about Clubhouse. Am I correct?
Indeed, Mark, it's a very popular app, but perhaps I should start off by explaining a bit about it, in case people don't know what we're talking about here. Clubhouse is an audio-based social media platform where people can connect with each other in audio format rather than in text, like on Twitter or Facebook, or in video like Instagram you mentioned, and TikTok. Now, people gather in rooms, in inverted commas, and when you enter a room, you're placed into the audience, where the speakers on stage can invite you up to talk, but you can, if you want, just sit there and listen. Now, there are topics on offer, from how to make money fast, and there's a lot of those, to major social issues being discussed, with a wide range of views on tap as well. Now, currently, you can only access the app from an invite from someone already on Clubhouse, and you can only download and use the app if you've got an iPhone. However, despite what you might consider some considerable limitations, it's been downloaded over 10 million times globally and has an active user base of around 2 million people per week. And it's also attracting big names too, with regulars including Oprah Winfrey, Elon Musk, Mark Aflalo, to name just a few. Not bad though for an app which was created just over a year ago, with just 9 employees to date.
9 employees. That's a nimble company. What about popularity? Is it continuing to be popular, or do you find that the novelty is wearing off a little bit?
It doesn't look that way. Looking at some of the online reports, they're suggesting that users who use Clubhouse spend a lot of time in the app. Some rooms running up to, wait for it, 72 hours. I was in a room that was running for that length of time, with obviously people going in and out through the course of the day and night.
Yeah, that's a lot of time spent on Clubhouse. I really don't quite understand how people can actually have that amount of time in their lives, even if they hand off amount of moderation. I mentioned off the top that blind people are apparently flocking to use this app. What's the big deal about it when it comes to blind people?
Well, it's quite simple, really, isn't it? Audio rules in the blind world, and the ease of being able to talk about issues and meet up socially without having to battle accessibility issues on an app when trying to follow a Facebook conversation and make sure you're commenting on the right post. It just makes sense to do it in audio. Now, there are a lot of blind people using the app, and there are a lot of specific blindness topic rooms appearing. But what I like about this is there are lots of blind people enjoying being able to join in mainstream issues and conversations, with the people in those rooms not actually knowing that they are blind. In some respects, it's a little bit of an equalizer for many in that regard.
Yeah, that makes sense. I enjoy using the app. I enjoy spending time there. More so listening than participating. I find it's fun to just kind of be a fly on the wall in the room there, and I can see how it makes sense, but I don't understand where people find all this time, because when I go back in time and time again, I find the same users over and over again are having conversations, moderating rooms. I don't know where they find the time.
No, I'm exactly the same. I'm with you on this. I see so many different people coming in and out, or getting notifications of people who are in rooms, and I think, how do you have the time? But I think it's important to remember that this app was born during a time when we were all locked up indoors. What will happen when we're all traveling and when we're back at the office, or we're at our daily social events in person again? Will the app survive?
That's a really good question, because as you said, we're kind of stationary still. Some people in some countries are up and about. I'm curious to see if there are statistics about those places that have reopened a bit, if people from those countries and those municipalities and those cities are still as actively involved. Now, I know you're a blind guy who's a fan, but on tap next, Stephen, we've got another blind guy who actually helped make Clubhouse even more accessible to the blind community. So let us know if you want to be on Clubhouse. If you are on Clubhouse, email us. It's feedback@ami.ca. Again, on Twitter, follow us at Double Tap Canada. Use that hashtag, which is AskDoubleTap, and ask us or tell us about your Clubhouse experience. And of course, on Instagram, it is at doubletap.online. We'll take a quick break and come back right here on Double Tap TV.
For more great Double Tap TV content, visit ami.ca/doubletap. This is Double Tap TV.
Welcome back to Double Tap TV. This week we are talking all things Clubhouse, the audio-based social media app that took the world by storm pretty much in 2020. I think it was almost a child of the pandemic, but it's growing even more in popularity in 2021. I am Mark Aflalo. Stephen Scott, you're always by my side. You've been following the success of not just the app, but specifically the accessibility of the platform for blind users. And thanks to our next guest, some major changes were made in the app in just the last few months.
That's right, Mark. When Clubhouse launched, a number of us blind geeks jumped on board immediately and signed up. I must say thanks to an invite from Mark Aflalo, of course. But
My pleasure, my pleasure.
It was very much appreciated. But we were very quickly saddened to find that it wasn't the most accessible app with those of us who use iPhones with VoiceOver enabled. That's the screen reader that reads aloud what you see on the screen. Now, thankfully, a hardy group of blind users decided to set up a Clubhouse discussion room all about accessibility and bring around some discussion, and that is when the changes started. Now, to tell us more, I'm joined by one of the guys involved, quite literally, who was in the room at the beginning, Kevin Satizabal. Kevin, thank you for being here on Double Tap TV. How did you originally learn about Clubhouse, and why did you decide to join up?
Okay, so I learned about Clubhouse from a post on Facebook, and I heard, audio-only platform. This sounds very exciting as a blind person, might be something I can engage in. But when I first installed the app, I was a little bit disappointed because there was a lot of accessibility issues. So a lot of unlabeled buttons. And one of the big problems was whenever you went into a menu, a lot of the menus you couldn't get out of without turning off VoiceOver. So, you know, that was tricky. And the first thing I did was go on Twitter and tweet them and say, you know, what's going on, because obviously this is a great platform for visually impaired people to come into, so you shouldn't exclude them.
So talk us through the next steps on this journey. You joined a Clubhouse chat that was discussing accessibility more generally, and then someone from Clubhouse dropped in, I believe.
Obviously, with the accessibility issues happening, I thought, it'd be great to host a room where I can talk through some of the tips and the hacks that I've learned over the last few days. So this was about a week in, because I'd been lucky enough to have a sighted friend who'd kind of gone through the app with me and shown me where everything was visually. So I was able to use it. So me and my friend Alex Mann teamed up to run an accessibility hacks room. And the 15% club, which is a club representing disabled people, one of many, but one of the first on the app, asked if we would like to host the room with them. So we said yes, and we started taking questions from people about the accessibility of the app. And about an hour and a half in, the developer of the app jumped in, Daniel Hammond, the sole iOS developer at the time, and he started taking our feedback, which was amazing. And, you know, I think from that conversation, there's definitely been a lot of accessibility updates and improvements.
So Kevin, this became a really positive story, I guess. What was your approach? Did you go in fighting? Did you aim for a constructive dialogue?
So I think the approach of actually gathering feedback, having that document, and then also having a discussion with users and a room, using the platform itself, and actually the developers seeing the issues firsthand was a really good way of kind of making them aware of accessibility. I'm all for having a dialogue with a company first. And, you know, if they don't listen to, then I'll probably go for the more gung-ho approach. But I think dialogue is so important at first because, you know, you want to try and build a rapport with a company and show to them what the issues are. And obviously, you know, the big thing I was saying to them is you want to include blind users. This is an audio-only platform. Sound is our world. So why would you exclude us, you know?
There are some disabled people who are very unhappy with this app, it's fair to say. I'm thinking in particular of the deaf community, for example, who have been quite outspoken, saying that because the app is audio only and doesn't provide captions, that it isn't an inclusive space. Are you aware of these discussions going on within the communities on Clubhouse around this topic?
Yeah, definitely that discussion is happening. And in the subsequent Clubhouse Accessibility Hacks room that I'm hosting, I'm always being very vocal about the fact that deaf users are not able to access the app so easily because there are no captions. And, you know, despite the accessibility updates, there is still a lot of work to be done. There's still you know, the advocacy needs to continue. And I think it's just about keeping up the pressure, sending those emails, and just trying to push that agenda forward, because you know, it's just so important. There are other apps that are already ahead of the game with this. If you look at Twitter Spaces, they already have captioning, so the technology is there. So, you know, as a user and as somebody who wants to be inclusive and advocate for inclusivity, I really hope that they're doing what they can and doing all they can to make the app more accessible.
There's some who might say that Clubhouse is an audio app, obviously. It's not a visual thing. Why would adding visuals to it be useful? Where do you stand on that?
Well, I think the technology is there to at least bring the you know, the conversations to life, but in terms of the captions. So the technology is available. Technology has improved a lot. There could be things where I know the app doesn't want to have general chats in the room, but then there could be a chat box for moderators. And so deaf users could actually ask their questions to moderators and have people, you know, either ask them for them or have moderators and people ask the question. So there are ways for this to be made inclusive. And you know, if you look at things like Instagram, for example, which for a lot of years wasn't very accessible, and people might have argued the same thing. Well, it's a visual platform, you're blind, why do you want to access it? Well, the reason I want to access it is because I want to be on Instagram like my friends. You know, if I'm a professional, everyone wants to be on Instagram. It's about choice. So I think that's a very important thing.
Okay, so let's put the accessibility issues to the side for a moment. What do you love about Clubhouse as an app in general? What makes you go back time and time again?
The thing I really like about Clubhouse is that kind of personal interaction with people. The fact that you can jump into a room, have group conversations about a whole range of topics, and also just the range of people that you have access to. You know, there are celebrities, there are like famous chefs, there are famous musicians, and it's just been a really great chance to both socialize with my friends, but also network with new people. So I think, and also for podcasters, I think it's a real potential game changer in a sense that you could either run or record a live show or get people up on stage and interact with your podcast. So I think it's just got some really great benefits. I mean, the thing is, with any app, with any social media, there are obviously bad actors, and there are you know, stories of people hijacking rooms and trolls and things like that. But I think the reality is that you're going to face that with any social media. I think it's really important to follow the people who you think you're interested in, and you know, follow the right people, and just don't engage with people who are going to give you negative vibes. And I think that will help to tailor the experience.
Kevin, do you think that apps like these are as popular as they are because of the pandemic?
It's an interesting question, isn't it? But I've definitely heard from some friends on the app who live on their own, saying to me, oh, you know, it's been just amazing to be able to meet with so many people and actually have that dialogue when we're not able to go out and about. It's going to be interesting to see how the app's growth it continues after lockdown. Is it going to be as rapid? But I think the need for conversation is going to be there, and I think it's kind of opened up a new way especially for sighted people who haven't really focused on audio as much to interact with each other.
Kevin St-Isabel, thank you for coming on and sharing your thoughts on Clubhouse here on Double Tap TV.
What a great story, Stephen. It's really cool to see how reactive a company can be, especially with only 9 employees. But I guess that kind of helps the situation. He is Stephen Scott. I am Mark Aflalo. Thank you for being with us each and every single week. I really want to hear about your feedback, guys. So email us feedback@ami.ca. On Twitter, follow us at DoubleTapCanada. Use that hashtag, which is AskDoubleTap. And now on Instagram, we are at doubletap.online. We take a quick break and come back, and let's talk more about other social media platforms and how they may be getting into the audio game.
Love Double Tap TV? Listen to AMI Audio for Double Tap Canada every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern for news and reviews on everything tech. This is Double Tap TV.
Back on Double Tap TV this week, talking all things Clubhouse. If you've got something to contribute, please let us know. Email feedback@ami.ca. Follow us on Twitter and use that hashtag, which is AskDoubleTap. Of course, we're at DoubleTapCanada on Twitter. And now on Instagram, it is at doubletap.online. Stephen Scott and Mark Aflalo with you each and every single week. Stephen, as we wrapped up that interview, I had a feeling that kind of rushed upon me, and that feeling was being impressed with a tech company. Now, I know we speak to a lot of people here on this show and on Double Tap Canada, but the responsiveness of Clubhouse to a conversation that had such an impact is really quite impressive.
It is, and I think a lot of that is driven by the fact that it's a very small team. You tend to get this when you have small teams of people working on apps or working on services. The smaller the team, the better the response you often get. If you try that with bigger companies, it can be more challenging, and that is something which we've found over time because there's just so many people to speak to, whereas in Clubhouse's case it's got 9 people. And the fact that one of the developers, who obviously is part of the app, got involved, got into the conversation with the 15% room that Kevin was part of and set up, really shows that they decided not to just ignore that, not to run away from it, but actually get involved and actively respond and make change.
Thinking out loud, I think of companies like Google, like Facebook, and I can't think of any example where they reacted to their community that quickly. But I guess that says something for being obviously a nimble company as opposed to a giant behemoth. Now, that being said, Stephen, since Clubhouse launched, we've seen a lot of stories in the news about competitors popping up. Not only standalone ones like Clubhouse as their own company, but companies like Facebook, companies like Twitter, enabling conversations just like Clubhouse. Now, what interests me about that is how reactive the space has become. Why on earth would a company like Facebook or a company like Twitter, who's so big, who has so many followers, why would they react to a 9-person company just because they're getting some traction? Do they feel threatened? Is it fear of missing out?
I think when it comes to audio-based apps, I must admit I'm a bit surprised as well. Audio-based conversation rather than text-based conversation like Twitter and Facebook have been for so long. I am a bit surprised at the rush to find a competitor to this. Also because I've yet to see how Clubhouse can monetize itself. As we're talking, there is now what's called a tip jar of sorts. As you're in a Clubhouse room, you can tip someone for their conversation. So if you really enjoy their content, you want to support them in the rooms they provide and take the time to put together, and the people who speak in those rooms as well, you can tip them. So that's a way of monetizing the people, but not the company, because Clubhouse doesn't take any money out of that. So I don't really know what Facebook and Twitter are chasing here. They obviously see something we don't, right?
Yeah, I guess we have to look at the fine print when we sign up for it and see, are they selling our information? Are there going to be ads down the road? And if there are, I'm not opposed to ads on a social media platform. I get that it's part of the business and it's a necessity in order to obviously let them make money and let them proliferate and let them grow. It's about how you place those and where they put those ads, especially on an audio platform that looks very much like radio, very much like talk radio channels. Where do they put those? Are they audio at the beginning? Is it like podcasts? How do they monetize? So I look forward to watching the space, and it does lend so much credibility to that old saying, which competition breeds innovation, or competition breeds excellence, doesn't it?
I think that's true. But then again, equally, these things can come and go. I do think the pandemic had a big part to play in Clubhouse success. I don't know if it would have quite hit the mark in the same way had we not been in a pandemic. And I say that because I've seen examples of this coming up through the years. We've seen apps like Dabble and Voreal. These were not apps built for blind people per se, but blind people leaped on it. And unfortunately, sighted people drifted away. So now we're in the pandemic. Bunch of people have joined up with Clubhouse because they've got far more time on their hands than they would have had normally. So they're able to spend their time, promote what they do, because bear in mind, it's a big promotional platform. If someone like you or I want to go on there, we're instantly talking about the shows we're doing. We're promoting ourselves. We're not just Stephen and Mark. We're Stephen and Mark from Double Tap TV and Double Tap Canada. And we're promoting what we do. So it's a good opportunity for us. We're using it in that way. I just don't know if once we're back in the office, people will A, have the time, or B, have the inclination, because they'll want to focus on making more money. And, a tip jar is great, but it's not going to pay your mortgage.
I know a couple good examples. Is an example of a friend of mine who has a podcast all about Olympics and Olympians. Now, he's not an Olympian. He's not, involved in any way, shape, or form. He just likes the Olympics, likes Olympians, and he has a podcast, and he gets into these topical conversations where he ends up promoting his own podcast, and he gets guests out of it, and it does help him network a lot, which is really cool. And then there's another example of a friend of mine who is in the podcasting space and talks all about monetizing podcasts and how to grow your podcast audience. And he's made a lot of clients out of just having conversations in Clubhouse, because you get to hear the opinions of others and you get to see who is legit and who is not. So I think it does help weed out some of that competition, or at least help, pinpoint those people who are actually credible and know what they're talking about. Now I'm going to put you on the spot, Stephen.
Okay.
If you were to build a social media network or a social network today, what would it look like?
Why would I tell you that? Why would I give that away to you for free?
Listen, anything said on this program, Stephen, is our property.
It's just us, right? Okay.
So nobody else can take it and just write. It's just us in this room. Nobody else is here.
Okay, fine.
Just you
All
and
right,
me.
fine. I'll
Talk to me.
tell you. I would take two social networks that exist currently and I'd fuse them together. I would take Facebook and WhatsApp and fuse them together. And what you get is audio Clubhouse on demand. Because that's the bit that annoys me about Clubhouse. If I join a Clubhouse room today, I might be joining a really interesting conversation, and then as sure as fate, someone will say, well, that's it. Time's up. Time to close the room. And I can't go back and listen to that conversation. If I was able to follow the comments, in audio form, I feel that could create a rather interesting... I use audio all the time on WhatsApp. I love audio messaging on WhatsApp. It's so much easier for me than trying to type out messages constantly. So imagine that in the Facebook world, where you could listen to the message. I often wonder, would that change how conversations develop, the kind of comments that people put forward? Because as we all know how toxic social media can be at times, would that change if someone was actually giving their voice to it? Would people be more well behaved on that platform? I don't know, but I'd be interested in that.
Yeah, I'd join that. I'd probably join that in a heartbeat. And thank you for that idea. I'm going to go create that right now. I mean, anything that you and I talk about here stays between us. Stephen,
50-50, absolutely.
thank you so much for being here this week. Thanks, of course, to our guest, Kevin. And thanks to Clubhouse for giving us another great reason to talk about something here on another edition of Double Tap TV. Guys, get involved. Email us. It's feedback@ami.ca. Follow us on Twitter and reach out. It's @DoubleTapCanada with that hashtag, which is AskDoubleTap. And, of course, now on Instagram, it is @DoubleTap.online. On behalf of Stephen Scott, I am Mark Aflalo. We'll chat with you again next week here on Double Tap TV.
For more great Double Tap TV content, visit ami.ca/doubletap. Hosted by Mark Aflalo and Stephen Scott. Editing, Will Latar. Production assistants, Wendy Kaufman. Content review, Zachary Aflalo. Social media, Andy Wynn. Segment producer, Sean Priest. Voiceover, Anna Vicino. Integrated Described Video Specialist, Ron Rickford. Coordinating producer, Jennifer Johnson. Director, Production, Kara Nye. Director, Programming, Brian Perdue. VP Content Development and Programming, John Melville. President and CEO, David Arrington. Copyright 2021, Accessible Media, Inc.